think what I have to do. Okay. Perfect. That's there. Right. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to collaborative event between the two projects, ShapingBIO and ROBIN. The topic of today's event, or the workshop, however we want to call it, is Unlocking Ireland's Bioeconomy Potential, Policy Insights and the Practical Tools for Regional Development. For those who don't know me, my name is Dragica Grozanic, and I'm working as a bioeconomy researcher within the Master Technological University. And together with my colleague, Colin Walsh from South Regional Assembly, we are partners in the ROBIN project. Next slide. So just to mention all of you that today's webinar is going to be a recorded webinar or the workshop for the dissemination purposes. Next slide. And now briefly about today's agenda. So we will start with welcome and introduction to today's workshop, which is going to be presented to you by myself. Then we will look into the bioeconomy governments in Ireland, which is going to be presented to you today by Joanna O'Riordan from IPA. Then we will look into the insights from the ShapingBIO project, which is going to be presented to us by Dr. Noha Mahmoud. Then we will hear more about the ROBIN project, providing the tools to develop good governments, which is going to be presented to you by my colleague Colin Walsh from South Regional Assembly. And then we are diving in today, let's say, the main thing in today's workshop, and that's the panel discussion, moving forward, retrieving bioeconomy, insights on aligning regional strategies with the national policy objectives, and actually what it means for the Irish regions. This part is going to be moderated by Maeve Henshin from Chaga ShapingBIO and BioOrbic, and Colin Walsh from ROBIN and South Regional Assembly. We are planning to finalize today's workshop around 11:45 with a session on the Q&A and the closure. This part is going to be moderated by myself. And now, just one thing to let you know, through the whole workshop today, please take this opportunity to ask the question through the whole workshop today. How you can do it, really simple, by putting the questions into the chat, which is the icon. Can you do twice enter, just column to show? Super, thanks a million, perfect. So you can put the questions into the chat, and then once we come to the session of the Q&A, then your question is going to be addressed to the relevant speaker. One more thing just to mention there is that during the presentations, which is this in first session, you can also ask the questions, and during their presentation or after the presentation is done, I can ask the question to the speaker. For the panelist session, the Q&A session will be coming after it. If there is a question to the relevant speaker or the panelist, please indicate that as well, so that I can really ask the question to the, your question that I can address to a relevant speaker, so, or the panelist. And I think that's it from this part. Now, just very shortly, next slide. If you don't mind to take your phone now and to scan this QR code on your screen, and answer us on this very simple question, and that's what would you like to get out of today's webinar? So simply one word. If you want to share more words, even better. So do we getting any ideas? Okay, perfect. Interesting. Maybe more. Just put whatever, what you would like to get out of today's webinar. It's really, just that we get some idea, as well as somebody put this. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Liz. I saw your comment there. Thanks. Oh, nice. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Maybe I will leave a few more seconds. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Okay. Nice. Thank you so much, everybody. Really, 35 responses, 6 already. It's super. Thank you so much for this part. Now, let's dive into today's presentations. Maybe you can stop. Super. Okay. Joanna, can you share your screen with us? Super. That's perfect. Just before you start, I would like to use this opportunity to just briefly introduce you. So Joanna Reardon is a senior researcher in the Whitaker School of Government and Management at the Institute of Public Administration. Her research is in the areas of public management and the governments, supporting the Institute's objective of building capacity in the Irish public service. Joanna is also the editor of the administration, the IPA's academic journal. So, dear Joanna, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Debbie, and thank you for the warm welcome. Good morning, and thank you for the invitation to talk to you about bioeconomy governance in Ireland. I just, when we did the sort of the word map there a few minutes ago, I saw knowledge and policy landscape came up, but both came up very prominently. So hopefully I can address people's questions in relation to those two themes in the next 10 minutes or so. So many of you here have a far deeper understanding of the bioeconomy than I do. I'm not here to talk to you about the bioeconomy, but about governance. And this is informed by the IPA's work over the past 4 years with the EPA on governance in respect of different environmental policy areas. The EPA's frustration and the focus they identified for us in our research is how might governance be improved in order to ensure better policy implementation and ultimately more progress in respect of environmental goals and targets. Governance is a complex and much written about term in the public management literature. Corporate governance is more straightforward. It describes the rules, practices and processes by which organisations are run. However, when we think about governance more broadly in terms of getting things done or how to improve outcomes for citizens, it's more complex to understand what it entails, and hence our research project. And through our research for the EPA over the past 4 years, we've done over 80 interviews and also conducted a number of workshops and case studies. And we believe we've learned a lot about governance of any complex policy challenge where a collaborative cross-government response is needed. And I'm going to share with you some of the findings from this research. However, first I want to give you an overview of bioeconomy governance in Ireland. The research project we carried out was looking at the bioeconomy in conjunction with the circular economy. That was the brief and the request from the steering group that it would be appropriate to look at the two of them in the two policy areas in conjunction with each other. And one of the requirements of the project was to map the high-level governance arrangements for both policy areas. And this, I know there's a huge amount of detail on the map here, and I'm sure Debbie will share the slides after the event. But I suppose just to say, without going into detail on the map, this was a very painstaking process, which in itself is a learning. The map I'm sharing with you here, and which is included in our research report, went through, I think it's about fair to say, about 50 iterations with the project steering group and with other stakeholders. And some of those people are in the audience today. So thank you very much for your patience and ongoing interest in this phase of the work. Much of the complexity did, it's fair to say, relate to the circular economy. However, how the bioeconomy relates to the circular economy, or perhaps more apt to say, doesn't always relate to the circular economy, was also an important point of the discussion. In terms of the bioeconomy, as you know, the key policy document is the Bioeconomy Action Plan, published in autumn 2023. The purpose of the plan is to develop Ireland's bioeconomy and to support the delivery of the vision identified in the 2018 National Policy Statement on the bioeconomy. Policy responsibility for the bioeconomy is mandated to the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine and the Department of the Environment, Climate and Communications. Following on from the publication of the National Policy Statement, a cross-government bioeconomy implementation group, jointly chaired by DAFM and DEC, was established in recognition of the need for cross-government engagement to guide bioeconomy policy development and implementation. And this was followed by the setting up of a stakeholder group, the Bioeconomy Forum, and an expert advisory group. The forum met for the first time in 2021, and membership encompasses regional and local government, representative organisations and industries using biological resources. There's an independent chair, currently John Malone, a former DAFM Secretary General. The forum is supported by an expert advisory group that represents 9 higher education and research institutes in Ireland. It's mandated to liaise with bioeconomy stakeholders across industry, relevant semi-state commercial companies, representative bodies, and NGOs and community groups involved in the bioeconomy. The forum and expert advisory group were reinvigorated following the publication of the Bioeconomy Action Plan. And the forum now has 50 members and will, for the period of the action plan, continue to support the implementation process through an annually agreed work programme. All of this is very constructive and helpful, and our assessment in reviewing governance arrangements was that some very good building blocks of governance were in place in respect of the bioeconomy in Ireland. Structures and processes are very necessary, but they're not sufficient to ensure good governance in terms of the effective implementation of policy. Or in the words of one interviewee, the focus in terms of governance needs to shift from the why and the what to the how, who and when. I can't in this short presentation go into detail in respect of our research findings and conclusions on bioeconomy governance. I'm going to focus instead in the final few minutes on sharing with you a summary of some of the very high-level recommendations. In other words, how we can switch the focus from what needs to be done to how best can we deliver on what we know needs to be done. Government policy is generally oriented towards sustainability, and there's reasonable collaboration across government with external stakeholders. The BIDG and the Forum were regarded very positively in our research. In particular, their support for the development of the Bioeconomy Action Plan was seen as having been very constructive. However, more generally, engagement within the BIDG is seen as being somewhat focused on information and knowledge sharing and to some degree problem solving, rather than grappling with the substantive issues involved in achieving policy coherence. So things like capitalising on synergies, determining trade-offs, and choosing between competing policy and financing priorities, which are all at the heart of good governance. To borrow the phrase used by Anne Pender and her colleagues in UCD, the focus has to date been on low ambition policy coherence. Carefully defining roles and responsibilities may sound obvious, but in our assessment, this could be enhanced. There needs to be a stronger emphasis on central oversight and strategic direction. However, it's also imperative that those involved are at a sufficiently senior level to take the decisions, for example, around policy and resourcing, which better governance requires. A more joined-up approach in respect of governance arrangements across different environmental policy areas is vital in order to achieve the sort of traction required across government. In effect, the environment speaking with one voice, which the EPA has repeatedly advocated. In this regard, in the first instance, we recommend far stronger linkages between circular economy and bioeconomy policy and governance. They're not the same thing, but they have very similar objectives, and many stakeholders view them in the same context. We have recommended the establishment of a high-level oversight group to support strategic leadership and monitoring of the implementation of circular economy and bioeconomy policy. And finally, the need to better integrate the bioeconomy in local government is referenced in the Bioeconomy Action Plan. The good engagement between central and local government in respect of the circular economy, which has evolved from their relationship in respect of waste management, could, we believe, be leveraged to also support the bioeconomy. Similarly, there's learning for the bioeconomy in the capacity building efforts of LawPro, the local government shared service for water. In conclusion, we believe that acting on these and the further recommendations in the research report will support the delivery of the objectives in the Bioeconomy Action Plan. However, if there's one point that I would really like to emphasise, it's that there's no quick fixes when it comes to governance. It requires painstaking and ongoing effort. I'd like to acknowledge the work on the research, in particular of my colleagues Richard Boyle and Sean Keating, and also to acknowledge and thank the EPA for their funding, and also the engagement and support of the Project Steering Group. I'm including here a link to the research report and also a link for the main report we did on water governance, which I think could be of considerable use. And lastly, as Debbie mentioned, I edit Administration, the peer-reviewed journal of the IPA, and I'd like to draw that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Thank you. So really, really nice presentation. And me personally, I enjoyed in your presentation. So thank you so much for sharing with us these insights. Really much appreciated. Okay. Yeah, as well, I'm with you, Patrick, on this one. Now we are diving into our second presentation, and that is insights in the ShapingBIO project, which is going to be presented to us by Noha Mahmoud. Noha, can you try sharing your screen and unmute yourself? And I will just give the very brief introduction. Is it okay? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we can see your presentation.
Yes.
Super. Okay, so Dr. Noha Mahmoud is an international sustainability expert with 12 plus years of experience in driving the transition towards net zero carbon. Noha is a postdoctoral researcher at Chegas working on the EU ShapingBIO project, turning research into the real world impact, bridging the policy and the practice for resilient systems. Dear Noha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to our collaborative webinar. It's very nice to see, like as many as you has showed up. It's very, really interesting opportunity, and I kind of start diving in. I don't know if you can see my screen properly. So to start in, brilliant. Okay, so I'll show you basically the results of our 2 years ShapingBIO project, and we can start with just a second. Yes. So the objective of ShapingBIO was instantly to have a better understanding of the bioeconomy. So what do we mean with that is like, what are the policy instruments available at the national, regional, or EU level, but also to promote bioeconomy innovation and coherent policy coordination in order to accelerate the implementation of bioeconomy, both at the EU level, but also at the member states. But with bioeconomy, if we think about it, it offers the opportunity to address the policy challenges relating to climate, circular economy, but also the sustainable development goals. And if we just think about an example of bioeconomy, it would be, it introduces novel value chains, so converting agri-food waste into higher added value product. So for example, you can think of, like agri-food waste, transform it into shampoos or face cream. That's possible, and it's actually happening. And another thing, it involves collaboration between sectors. So in that example, it's agriculture, it's industry, but also it's a lot of coordination between policymakers at different levels. So national and regional, as an example. So the Shaping Bio had 4 key themes. First, it's policy and governance, and we have heard from Joanna a bit about the governance in Ireland. But for Shaping Bio, we started looking at what are the strategies and action plans available and how to implement them. We also looked at research and technology transfer, so how to translate research into more marketable products and how to bring different actors together. Also, financing, which is how to bridge the funding gaps and how to encourage private investment in the bioeconomy. And we did that through, like identifying what are the bottlenecks, key gaps, and so on. And we worked with experts, we conducted case studies, events, and workshops. And at the end, we developed recommendations to foster harmony across the bioeconomy. But what did we learn? So I'm not presenting everything that we have learned here, but just like 2 relevant points is that there is a high level of variation between member states in terms of the bioeconomy development. And if you think about it, it's different policy systems, it's different geography priorities. So you will see like you have some regions and some member states, rural and coastal. So it's a lot, of variations. But the other thing, which is really seconding, like the research from the IPA and EPA, it's like better coordination is needed, not only across sectors like the marine and environment, but also across the EU, the national and regional levels. And if we look at the regions, we have found that there are some key elements that can help to support the bioeconomy development. So, for example, policy, collaboration, finance, and community engagement. But the key thing is that these elements are actually going hand in hand. So they are, like interlinked elements. And if we would like to get a closer look at what does each element mean actually, and then we start with policy for regions, so there is a need to identify what are the regional priorities. Is it waste management? Is it for job creation? But also have a region-specific vision, which is tailored for the region and its priorities. And in terms of collaboration, there is a need to support cross-sectoral collaborative efforts. And there is a very good example from Bavaria where there is 17 industrial clusters. And those industrial clusters actually help to create market opportunities, but also create channels for interregional collaboration, both nationally and internationally. So across, like the country, but also with other, like countries as well. Finance, there is the target support for business development and market entry, where we have seen, like there is still some businesses are struggling to enter the market. And also from Central Macedonia, there is this SMEs vouchers to support innovation and totally dedicated for SMEs. There is also a need for strengthening partnership between public institutions and private investors. And for community, we need to maintain an open and ongoing communication channels. And actually, we have a very good example from Ireland. It's like the Ireland Bioeconomy Week, where it's a dedicated week for public engagement. And in 2023, there was like this bio bus. It's a bus that, like went through the whole of Ireland with examples of bio-based products that we can use in our daily life. And that's really a very good example. But also, like to have initiatives to empower the local community and raise awareness. So the important question, what is the way forward then? So I'd say it's customized and context specific. So if we think about like the regions, it can start with identifying what are the strengths of the region. It can be a certain feedstock or a dominant industry or a certain waste stream that we have that we can turn into products. But also have an understanding of the stakeholders, the collaborative platforms, networks that we can use, and collaborate with and build, like strong collaboration with. Another thing is the open and ongoing communication with the regional stakeholders, but also to share the knowledge with other regions to create a mutual learning environment. And another point is engaging with national policymakers to align regional and national visions and policies. And actually, by saying this, I'd like to draw your attention to, like the resource that we have on Shaping Bio. So we had like developed a lot of reports on policy governance, but also regional development and finance, which are very, like they are big reports, but they are very insightful. But also we have like some infographics on different topics, as you have seen here, just like really some examples. And if you want to learn more, you can use this QR code or go to shapingbio.eu. And one last thing is save the date. It's for 25 June 2025, special date in Brussels. We have our final conference where we will share, like more detailed insights from our project. And by saying this, I'd like to thank you on behalf of our project partners. Thanks. And if you have any questions, please add them to the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noah, for sharing your presentation with us today. Thank you so much. Okay, and now we are going in our third presentation on the ROBIN project, which is going to be presented to us by my colleague, Colin Walsh. Oh, perfect, you're already here. Perfect, thanks so much. Just a brief introduction of you, Colin, for those who don't know you. Colin Walsh is an EU project officer within the Southern Regional Assembly based in Waterford. Colin is currently working on the Horizon Europe ROBIN project with aims to empower regional authorities to develop and implement circular bioeconomy objectives in their regional planning framework based on international best practices. Dear Colin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Davi. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, indeed.
Great. Thank you. So just this morning, I'm just going to take you through some of the background to the ROBIN project and some of our main objectives and activities. And then I'm going to talk about some of the insights that we've gained, learned that we might take forward to discuss that might be relevant to our discussion on bioeconomy governance later on this morning. So to begin, the ROBIN project, it's a 36-month Horizon Europe project. It's comprising 5 participating regions: Central Macedonia, Baden-Württemberg in Germany, Andalusia in Spain, Zelina in Slovakia, and the southern region of Ireland. And MTU and the Southern Regional Assembly are the Irish partners in the project. So the objectives then of the project briefly are to empower regions to promote social innovation, to account for different territorial contexts and characteristics of different regions, to understand governance practices, to identify best practices, and to enhance bioeconomy benefits. So key activities then of the project can be summarized as follows. These are the actions that we have done over the course of the project to date. So we set up multi-actor regional constellations, which were our advisory board essentially. We analyzed and developed regional bioeconomy governance models and practices. We developed a digital toolbox with support actions and tools. We carried out alpha and beta testing validation workshops with local and regional authorities. We monitored and evaluated project outcomes, exchange of best practices and lessons learned, and this enabled us to facilitate replication and develop policy recommendations. So each of the 5 participating regions in ROBIN developed validation plans in our individual regions, and these set out our support and validation actions that we could implement to meet the specific needs and context of our respective regions. This process helped us to ensure that in developing a suite of digital tools that we put at the disposal of our stakeholders, that the validation process was relevant and effective for our stakeholders. So the plans prioritize actions that involve regional stakeholders, including regional authorities, academia, business, and civil society. The aim here was to gather diverse perspectives and feedback and to ensure that the toolbox is user-friendly and meets regional challenges. So a notable aspect of the validation plans then, I suppose, is the emphasis on customization and regional specificity. Each participating regional node developed a tailored validation plan, and the purpose of this was that it would align with their regional governance model, their bioeconomy objectives and stakeholder dynamics in their regions. So in the southern region, we developed a suite of support and validation actions that would help us to establish a framework for regional planning around bioeconomy governance. This involved, for example, inviting local authorities in the region to engage with the project, and this was primarily by means of participation in stakeholder workshops. Bioeconomy awareness raising efforts through participation in Bioeconomy Ireland Week, as Noah mentioned already, and attending sustainable agri events with Robin pull-up banners, say, and information leaflets on Robin and the bioeconomy. We undertook education mapping. Research was conducted by MTU with the assistance of third-level professionals into available bioeconomy-related courses and to identify gaps in industry and research skills requirements and recommendations for future-proofing education needs around the bioeconomy. We highlighted bioeconomy innovation. This research focused on identifying innovations from business, research entities and projects and mapping them out within the region. We conducted a study of biomass quantification, identifying available biomass and subsequently mapping out the biomass of cereals, forest and energy crop and slurry and pasture biomass arisings. The objective here was to provide accurate data on biomass resources, measurements so that's essential for sustainable bioeconomy planning and decision making. Research was carried out into funding streams available from the Irish government and the EU to enhance development of the bioeconomy, as well as an analysis of strategies and policies at the local, regional, national and EU levels that act as a resource to policymakers and practitioners. So alongside all of these support actions, ourselves in Southern Regional Assembly and MTU facilitated a series of iterative validation workshops of the digital tools that were developed by the project. These tools incorporate many of the things mentioned already that can be used by bioeconomy stakeholders in industry, research, education, policymaking, and civil society. So just to give you an overview of some insights from the project, throughout the project partners took the opportunity via our workshops, questionnaires, and to get feedback from and canvass the views of our stakeholders on various aspects of the project. This included the project's digital tools and the supportive validation actions identified by the Irish partners as being key to developing the bioeconomy in the region. So in keeping with the governance focus of today's events, I've highlighted in the slide the most commonly expressed takeaways and opportunities identified by participants on this theme. So you can see from the slide there under key takeaways, we have the suggestion that national strategy should align with regional needs. Robin fostered greater regional collaboration and raised awareness of bioeconomy opportunities. The project brought diverse stakeholders together in an iterative process of policymaking. It's identified that there's a need for greater collaboration between projects and agencies to enhance and broaden stakeholder engagement and knowledge exchange. You might notice a bit of a theme emerging here from some of the issues that Joanna brought up in her presentation also. Under opportunities then, on the basis of participation in the project, most commonly mentioned by stakeholders were EU funding and co-funding, greater interagency collaboration, policies and strategies such as the new EU Bioeconomy Strategy, the new National Bioeconomy Strategy, the National Planning Framework, and the research review. Some challenges then. Just in the context of our panel discussion, I suppose, I want to leave you with some questions and themes that have come up for us regularly during stakeholder feedback that may just prompt some reflection for our panelists during the Q&A session later. So I suppose as policymakers and practitioners, we're all aware that the bioeconomy it's a relatively new concept in Irish policy that I suppose is arguably yet to have its proof of concept widely accepted by the general public. I suppose more of a marathon than a sprint, you might say. So there's a number of key challenges that pose an impediment to implementation that are worthy of discussion, we believe. And I've just chosen 3 there in the slides. Others will no doubt arise during our discussion later this morning. So under leadership and communication, so in selling the message that the bioeconomy can be an enabler for integrated and sustainable economic development, that we require leadership on consistent and positive messaging as well as policy implementation. This will likely need to be driven from the top down. The increased prominence of bioeconomy in national policy can help to sell the message to the general public of the benefits of the bioeconomy in terms of local job creation, energy security, and reducing emissions, etc. So under cohesive implementation, it was found that while there's a wealth of existing knowledge and research into the potential of the bioeconomy in Ireland, we are aware of the scale of the opportunity, and we know what we have to do in terms of meeting our statutory obligations on climate change and how investment in the bioeconomy can help us achieve that. But we need to decide, I suppose, who will do it ultimately. And then under regulation, related again, I suppose, to implementation, is that while regional and local authorities do have considerable influence over enterprise development and planning, in particular, there remain regulatory blockages and barriers that inhibit entry into the market and infrastructure development by industry that are beyond the remit of the local and regional authority. So I suppose the question there is, how can these be overcome? There are just a few questions that I wanted to leave you with. So I hope I've given you a quick overview of the project and the outcomes and insights that we've gleaned from our stakeholders and from our own research. So with that, Debbie, I'll hand it back to you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Colin. Yeah, I think that you put a lot of things that we were doing in the project, but there is even more things in there. So now we came to our session where we have our panelists there. So I would like to ask all the panelists to have their cameras on. Perfect. And I'm leaving now the floor to Maeve to start with the first question to our first group.
Thanks very much, Debbie. And I suppose it's nice to see there's at least coherence between the presentations and the word cloud that was captured initially. I think there's kind of common threads kind of coming throughout there. And I think, particularly the kind of policy landscape and the joined up thinking keywords that were emphasized at the start. So my understanding is that we have two panels and that I'd be kind of dealing with the national level policy framework. So we're on the panel that I'm working with, we have Patrick Barrett, and Patrick is an agricultural inspector at the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine with responsibility for the area of bioeconomy policy. Patrick is a member of the National Bioeconomy Implementation and Development Group and co-leads on the Bioeconomy Action Plan and the Bioeconomy Strategy. And internationally, he represents Ireland in various initiatives and programmes that aim to foster innovation, collaboration and circularity in the bioeconomy. So thank you very much for joining us, Patrick. Then we have Laura Broomfield, who works very closely with Patrick. As you know, DEC and DAFM have co-lead and co-chair a lot of initiatives. So Laura is working with the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications as Assistant Principal Officer, along with Patrick and the wider DAFM team. She works on the joint implementation of the National Bioeconomy Action Plan and the development of the Bioeconomy Strategy. And she's also co-lead on the organisation of the Global Bioeconomy Summit to be held next year. We also have Laura Courtney. Laura is from the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, and she's a member of the cross-department Bioeconomy Implementation and Development Group that you've already heard about, which provides leadership on bioeconomy policy in Ireland. So thank you very much to Laura and Patrick for joining us. So I think, a clear theme that we've been kind of talking about, and that's coming from the results of ShapingBIO and ROBIN and the discussion here, is that there's a need for policy alignment at national, regional and local level. And if we think about the bioeconomy, and we recognising that we have a bioeconomy policy statement since 2018, and we have a bioeconomy action plan covering the period 2023 to 2025. Can you tell me a bit about how these policies and related policies and structures are already contributing to policy alignment across those scales at the moment? So we don't we can leave this a little bit open and fluid, but we might just kick off. Maybe Patrick, you might start, and then we can just Laura can join in kind of as appropriate then, but we can keep it a little bit fluid. But just maybe to start the ball rolling, Patrick, you might start off. Right, Patrick, you're on the famous mute.
So this is a matter, Maeve, policy alignment, policy cohesion that we've been working on since the publication of the National Policy Statement, and ourselves and our colleagues in DEC have been diligently working on this. And this can happen in many different forms. So we would have worked very closely with Laura and her team in Department of Housing to ensure that bioeconomy is mentioned in the National Planning Framework, for example. But we also would have ensured that bioeconomy is integrated into many different higher order policies, as I would term them, like Climate Action Plan, Food Vision 2030, the Circular Economy Strategy. And this comes about through a lot of work with colleagues across various different departments. And that's why we have in our Bioeconomy Implementation and Development Group 11 different departments and 8 or 9 different agencies. And this helps us not only integrate bioeconomy into these policies, but then also to act on implementation. And just a point I'd come to, like Joanne raised very valuable points about governance. And I suppose the challenge for us is often the easy part with policy alignment is to get the bioeconomy mentioned in these various strategies or policies. But then the challenge is really converting the words that are there into meaningful actions. And we need to go from this strategic direction to priorities, and really not only developing sort of longer and medium term actions, but also shorter term actions that impact on policy targets. And as we move towards this, and this is what the Bioeconomy Action Plan was really about, was really creating the scenarios where departments and agencies took up responsibilities for actions, built their internal capacities and capabilities and understanding. And I suppose we're regularly coming to our policy implementation group meetings where we were moving from just knowledge sharing and information about what was going on in the bioeconomy world to actually them taking on actions and reporting regularly. So a work in progress, albeit, and I think as we move from this more longer and medium term outlook on the bioeconomy to more shorter term actions that impact on policy targets, then senior officials in organizations will start to look for us and listen to us even more so than they're doing now, because they know that we're answering the day-to-day jobs that they are being asked to address by the political system. So I'll leave it now to let Laura and Laura come in, but that's an opening outlook, Maeve. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. And you mentioned, the National Planning Framework. So I think, Laura, Courtney, you were just going to jump in there, I think. So if you could, go ahead.
Hi, Maeve. Thanks very much. I was indeed. And thanks for having me here today for this very interesting, actually, policy discussion on it. And I suppose just to reiterate there what Patrick said, yes, it is good to have kind of the policies and policies alignments in place, but it will come down now more to, I suppose, implementation of that. But just to say to the audience here that very happy to say that the National Planning Framework, the revision of such, was approved by government yesterday. So that's through the gate now, and we'll have that published today on www.npf.ie, and that's available there and covers a wide variety of areas, and not just obviously bioeconomy. But just to say, within the 2018 National Planning Framework, I think that was the first time that the bioeconomy was, I suppose, mentioned in that. So I think that has given, that has highlighted it to a certain degree. This revision is reiterating that as well. And obviously with the regions now, we have, I suppose, I'll just give you a little bit of background on planning hierarchy in general. So we have the National Planning Framework, and that is kind of at the apex of the planning framework in Ireland. Then we have the 3 regional authorities, and covering Ireland from them, and they do out their regional spatial economic strategies. And then under that, we have the 31 local authorities, which each prepare their development plans and have to be consistent with national policy and with regional policy on top of that. So they have to incorporate all that, incorporate items and policies in relation to circular and bioeconomy on foot of that. And then coming down from that, you should have planning applications that leading in and taking their guidance from the development plans. So that's just like to say that as well. So yeah, if there's any further questions or anything. Happy.
A lot of alignment going on there, yeah. And we've talked about various structures and systems there as well. But I come to you, Laura Broomfield. The CAROs, I think, have a key role here. You might just briefly explain to our audience the CAROs and maybe their potential role in this space, maybe as well, please.
Yeah, I can. And thanks very much to the SRA and the MTU teams for today and for inviting me as a panelist. I think just first on the governance issue, the complexity and the multi-sectoral nature of the bioeconomy makes that policy coherence. It's a bit of a challenge for policy coherence. We do have to align with several, and I think that's where the BIDG and the Irish Bioeconomy Forum really helped that. And I think the work between DAFM and DEC and the partnership between DAFM and DEC on ensuring that as well, and ensuring that coherence is helping in some way for those steps towards coherence. You can see this complexity at a national level, you'll see it at a regional level, you'll see it at a European level, that it's across different DGs, different departments, different regional areas, and also touches into different sectors. So the circular economy, as mentioned, and the links there, and also the links with climate and climate action. Patrick mentioned there the climate action plan and the inclusion of bioeconomy in there. You can see it in CAP 24, in CAP 25 as well. And work has started now on CAP 26 and the new carbon budgets. So we're hoping to ensure that bioeconomy is incorporated into that. And part of that is through the work of the CAROs, or the Climate Action Regional Offices. I think Breda Mar is on the call also, and she would be well placed to talk about what's going on between the CAROs and the organisation Climate Kick through the DAFM Sustainable Agricultural Project. One of the pillars is to look into how the bioeconomy can help with addressing climate action in the area of agriculture, and that link in with the work of the CAROs. So there's some good progress being made there with linking the bioeconomy into the climate sphere.
Thanks very much. And we don't have anyone here from the Department of Rural and Community Development, but obviously the LEADER programme is very relevant there. Does anybody kind of have any observations that they can share with us there? I mean, maybe Patrick, do you have something that you can comment on there in relation to the LEADER programme that is relevant?
Yeah, well, like the first thing to say is that, again, as an example, bioeconomy is included in our rural future, and that's the starting point. So we're in the national strategy, and falling out from that, we were able to engage with our colleagues who lead on LEADER within the Department of Rural and Community Development. For example, we had some capacity building events with the local development companies and with LEADER related groups in the run up to the development of their strategic outlooks. And I suppose currently the activities are a little bit bottom up, in that we are sending interested parties to speak with their local development groups and to examine if bioeconomy opportunities can be developed through the green economy stream, which it has been agreed would cover, for example, bioeconomy, circular economy. So the building blocks are in place, and now we're looking for the opportunities to come through. But there's also, I suppose, the need to raise awareness with people all across the relevant LEADER related groups in Ireland, across the counties, of what the bioeconomy means, how it can be important for them to deliver on some of their key objectives, and then to prospectively fund projects that are of a suitable quality, and then you get the bottom-up ideas coming through. And that's quite important, because those bottom-up ideas often involve multi-actor approaches and bringing together collaborations that aren't currently in the system and that are quite important for delivering on the bioeconomy. So I note, Maeve, just before I come, and Joanna might be coming in a second, like there is a question there about effective multilateral mechanisms to deliver on governance. And I suppose we haven't hardened our thoughts on this, and this may be something that we would be very interested to hear from stakeholders on in the development of the National Bioeconomy Strategy. So I suppose the things to say here is that a lot of structures have been put in place to deliver governance for example, water, and there are people being put in place in local authorities that look at climate action and look at biodiversity, and maybe people will be put in place because I see a mandate now to develop circular economy action plans at a local level. And maybe there is some thinking that's needed, and I'm not saying it'll happen today or tomorrow, but that actually sustainability is a sort of a multi-issue matter, and it needs joint up thinking between people who work on biodiversity, who work on climate action, who work on economic development, who work on circular economy at the local authority level, and rather maybe than inventing or coming up with a new structure that's individual and it's on its own, maybe we need to look at what's currently there and see if there can be some synergies and that bioeconomy can be integrated into the work of people that are there, or maybe additional people in a team of how you work on this. So that's some of my early thoughts on this multi-level polycentric governance that's been suggested, but I'm sure there's others that are much better qualified than me to have thoughts on this. So I'll hand it back to you, Maeve, and maybe others want to come in.
Thanks, Patrick. And I think that might be taken up a little bit more on the Q&A session later on, maybe as well. So I might just leave that with Debbie and Joanna for later on. But we might move on to the bioeconomy strategy then, and just Laura, maybe if you wouldn't mind just kind of updating us on kind of what the timelines around that, and maybe explaining why do we need a strategy. We have a policy statement, we have an action plan, and we have a raft of other policies. So just you know, the current timelines around it, and why we feel that it's needed at the moment.
Yeah, sure. The bioeconomy strategy was foreseen within the action plan for 23 to 25, and it was foreseen to cascade from the new EU bioeconomy strategy, which is expected by the end of this year. The public consultation on the EU bioeconomy strategy is currently open. It's due to close on June 23rd. So if stakeholders here are interested, they can respond directly, or they can contact us as well. So there was always a plan to have a strategy, and it would make sense for this to be a strategy and action plan to go from 26 onwards with a slightly longer period of time. So 26 to 30 is the period of time we were looking at. And the idea was to draw from what's happening at an EU level, as well as what's happening on a regional and local level in Ireland, so that there is that coherence between the regional, national and European levels, because anything with the bioeconomy, because it is market-based as well, will have input from a European level as well. So it's really a chance to take stock of where we've got with the implementation of the action plan and where to move from there. And in terms of timelines, we have just started the process, so we're just working on our stakeholder mapping at the moment. It's expected that we will have the bioeconomy action plan for around Q3 2026. There will be a meeting of the Bioeconomy Implementation and Development Group and the Irish Bioeconomy Forum together in June for a discussion on this, and to see what our next steps are. So that's where we're at now with the national strategy.
Great. And if we think, you know, about we're trying to translate all of these policies and strategies into initiatives on the ground, and, you know, we have some very good initiatives around demonstration initiatives and things like that. Are there kind of any practical examples that, you know, that might be useful for our audience here to be aware of, that they might go to see and learn from, and that might enable them to contribute to the consultation phases in relation to the strategy in due course? Like, there's lots of things going on in Tipperary, Donegal, Cork, and in the Midlands, and in other areas as well. So does anybody want to just kind of comment briefly on some examples there that might be worth people following up on and learning a little bit from?
Yes, so I might step in there, Maeve. I mean, the background to these piloting and demonstration actions is that Ireland has very significantly invested in research. So we have the capacity and capability of the research community that's able to work with people who are in the bio-based value chain. That could be, like, obviously SME and large industry, but oftentimes involves other stakeholders. Increasingly, if you want to have action on the ground, you need to have primary producers, you need to have agile SMEs, you need to have you know, other types of groupings such as cooperatives, etc., engaged. So through the EU Just Transition Fund, DAFM has funded, for example, the further development, building on funding from EI, of the National Biorefinery Campus in Lachine in County Tipperary. So we have a project there called Bio Scale Up. It's involves the bringing together of 5 of the major academic institutions in Ireland, and they're looking at a valorization of materials related to dairy processing and to forestry processing, and dealing with waste and byproduct related challenges and opportunities. So that's a real opportunity for people to go and visit Stephen and his colleagues in Lachine, see the types of technologies and opportunities that's available for all types of cooperatives and I suppose agri-food processing companies and forestry-based processing companies, bio-waste processing companies, to see what may be the innovation and science and technology developments that they could leverage, not only for dealing with sustainability, but also economic opportunity. Another more on-the-ground opportunity that's been funded is the Mount Lucas Bioeconomy Aquaculture Project. So one of the key challenges or opportunities here is I suppose in the Just Transition Fund region, we're looking for opportunities for people to transition from I suppose peatland processing, which now is something that people are moving away from quite strongly. Companies like Bord na Móna are moving away and transitioning to a greener outlook and company, to new opportunities for food and feed development, one that will develop products with environment and climate credentials that are absolutely essential, but are new economic opportunities for operators on the ground. So the Mount Lucas Bioeconomy Project, you know, it establishes how to do this, and then you have opportunities such as led by Doug McMillan's group, who's bringing this on further for farmers to work on the ground and look how they can do this within the realms of their own land and their own land use. So again, this is where we're trying to intervene and show new ideas, showcase them, develop the science, the knowledge, the technology, the information that's needed to be brought to bear by local actors and local communities, and to support them. And we realize that only by doing this on the ground will not only the local communities and the people realize what's involved in bioeconomy and be able to capture the opportunities by themselves, but also our higher level policy and political system, by viewing these ideas, will start to think of the bioeconomy as being something that can address short and medium term policy targets, and allows them to speak about it because they can see it with their own eyes.
Yeah, and it helps to answer the question that we're always asked, what is the bioeconomy? So yeah, no, that's great. Laura Courtney or Laura Broomfield, do you have anything to add in terms of kind of specific initiatives or examples that people might be interested in going to see? Or
well, I suppose I'll come in there, and I suppose I'm the more kind of high-level national policy. So, and in terms of, you know, the planning advisor as well. So it's just we're that little bit removed from specific cases or case studies. But just to say, it was very interesting actually to hear from Patrick there and the different examples that are going on and the different projects that are going on. And I suppose just even for my own knowledge expansion and that, I suppose, you know, in terms of spatial planning, is there a specific land take ask, or I suppose if that's just from different project to project, I presume as well. But to flag on another point to flag, we have the Office of the Planning Regulator, the OPR. They provide a lot of training to elected members and to local authority officials on various topics and on all the rest from that. And it could be possibly beneficial. Obviously not to, I can't speak for the OPR, so I'm not saying, but to look at some type of training for elected members on the kind of bioeconomy and possibly, you know, site visits or whatever like that, to raise awareness of it and to actually visually see the examples and how it can work, particularly I'm presuming in the probably rural environment and for the economy and for jobs and whatnot. So yeah, I think there's a variety of avenues that can be further explored kind of going forward from this.
Yeah, sure. There's nothing like seeing it or feeling it. I'm just conscious that we're probably out of time for our session, but I just might give the final word to Laura. Laura, you might just say briefly about the Global Bioeconomy Summit. And we've been talking about local, regional, national and EU, but I think we might as well think big, and we do think big, and the Global Bioeconomy Summit is coming to Ireland, so I might just give you a brief moment just to, I suppose, talk about that just before we close off. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. DAFM and DEC have worked together on, and we're successful in getting the Global Bioeconomy Summit, to come to Ireland. It will be in the second half of 2026, which is when Ireland will chair the European presidency. So it's going to be a busy time, but it's a really good opportunity for Irish examples of bioeconomy in action to be seen on a global level and to learn from what's happening on a global level, to see what could be applicable and scalable in Ireland as well. And the previous event, which took place in Nairobi, had about 500 people, I think, in person and 2,000 online. So we're expecting a good amount to come here to see our bioeconomy in action.
Great. Thank you very much, Laura. So just to say thank you very much on behalf of all of the attendees here today to Laura Broomfield from DEC, Laura Courtney from Housing and Patrick from DAFM. Thank you very much for your insights and sharing your time today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much as well from my side. And now we come to the second part of today's panel. Colm, you can take the lead on that.
Great. Thanks very much, Maeve. Thanks, Dabby. It's great to get those insights from the national and even the global level of what's happening with the bioeconomy. We're going to move on to our new panel now, which is representatives from regional government and local government. So I would like to introduce you to David Kelly. David is the director of the Southern Regional Assembly. We have Elaine Cullinan, who is the Secretary of Bioeconomy Outreach Officer from Tipperary County Council. And finally, we have Breda Marr, who is the Regional Coordinator for the Eastern and Midlands Climate Action Regional Office. Climate Action Regional Office has been mentioned a couple of times already in the course of our discussion, so I might start, Breda, with yourself, if you don't mind. You might tell us a little bit maybe about the CARO for people who aren't familiar, but more specifically, I wanted to ask you about the work that you're currently carrying out in conjunction with Climate Kick and DAFM around the Deep Demonstration Initiative, working with local authorities, and if you're in a position to maybe share any insights that have emerged. I know you're running a series of workshops at the moment.
Thanks very much, Colm, and thank you to everyone for the invite here today. I will start with the CAROs and explain their purpose. The CAROs for Climate Action Regional Offices are established as part of a local government shared service initiative working to coordinate on climate action activities and drive the climate action agenda through local authorities. We were established in 2018, primarily starting out focusing on adaptation and trying to build the national resistance to the impacts of climate change. We've expanded our brief since then into the mitigation area, and we work with local authorities. We've worked with local authorities to support the development of the local authority climate action plans, which are now a requirement as per the climate amendment legislation in 2021. So every local authority has a local authority climate action plan, an LA CAP. It's a 5-year plan, and it covers, they each cover such a broad spectrum of actions, kind of focusing broadly on the services and functions performed by local authorities, but also that outreach into the community and the community activation on climate action as well. So that's the CAROs. We support all of that, and the kind of the formalisation of climate action as a function of local government now. We've always been doing it. I should say that we've always been doing something related to climate, but it has never been formally put in under a heading of climate. So we work to that now at the moment. You mentioned our project with the DAFM and Climate Kick initiative and the Deep Demonstration. We're working with the Irish Deep Demonstration and its flagship 3 and its program manager, Dr. Denise Julian, who's I think on the call somewhere. Hi, Denise. And the purpose of that flagship is to promote the bioeconomy models in the regions. And what we've done is we've selected 10 local authorities to work with in relation to promoting bioeconomy awareness, and, you know, kind of taking a deep dive in relation to what's going on, what are the issues. Now, we've selected the 10 local authorities based on their work to date in relation to bioeconomy activity or the potential that they have, and just kind of elevating levels of awareness and knowledge, and then just to see, in particular, can we create that linkage at the local level between climate, the planning, you know, the regulatory side, and the enterprise side of local authorities. There's a strong combination in the 3 of them to really promote bioeconomy activity and opportunities. And that way, you know, we're bringing the planning regulations that where we plan these things, design these things, where we place them, their purpose with job creation, and then all the time working to achieve climate objectives as well. We have a programme of events planned for the year ahead. So we're in the middle of the first stage, which is our workshops with the local authorities. So we've held 2 just earlier this week. We'll move on to information webinars, and we'll move on to developing impact stories. And what we want to move on into is a broader spread of that awareness in through local authorities, and a bit of a mobilisation in relation to that as well. There's been some very good insights coming back from the workshops. You know, a lot of people who have been around for a long time to have known of past attempts at, you know, the promotion of anaerobic digesters, for example, and how and why they failed at that time, and, you know, what can we do differently? You know, those type of issues are coming up. Another fundamental issue that's coming up is, you know, as we take a little bit of a dive into the evidence that exists in relation to side streams or waste products, or whatever terminology you want to put on that. And there's just an amazing amount of clarity as to, you know, why aren't we doing this? This just makes sense now at this stage. Why aren't we just really promoting the bioeconomy to capture what was once perceived as waste, but it isn't? It can be, you know, repurposed, reused, you know, brought back into the value chain, and we can make money out of it and become more self-sufficient. So we continue our journey. A few little insights there, but we'll see where it takes us.
That's great, Breda. Thanks very much. I think that gives people a really good flavour of what's in the pipeline, and in terms of your work with the local authorities. And I suppose on that theme, we have Elaine Cullinan here with us from Tipperary County Council. I suppose Tipperary, in some senses, would be seen as being in the vanguard maybe of bioeconomy development. Certainly the infrastructure and motivation seems to be there in abundance in the leadership of the council. Elaine, can I turn to you and just ask you to maybe give me some examples of initiatives that the council are currently involved with?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Colin, and thank you for the invitation to be part of this panel discussion this morning. So, Tipperary County Council, yes, we have the bioeconomy at the heart of our work at the moment. I suppose by virtue of having the National Bioeconomy Campus in our county, there's very strong working relationships between Tipperary County Council and the team there at the IBF. So a couple of initiatives going on at the moment. I suppose you've mentioned there the CAROs. We have our local area climate action plan as well. There's setting the scene for going green is our mantra there. That would set out 100 different county council climate actions, but the bioeconomy would be at the heart of many of those actions and strategic goals. We would also, so by virtue of having myself in place as a bioeconomy officer, I can ensure that the bioeconomy is at the heart of our local economic and community plan, our county development plan, as well as this climate action plan. We also have our decarbonisation zone, and Tipperary County Council has selected a rural region with the National Bioeconomy Campus at the core of that area. So it spans 13 different villages, 7,000 people approximately, as part of our DZ zone. We also have the recent appointment of a decarbonisation zone officer, so to work specifically in that area with communities, education, programs, and all that goes with that. I think he may be on the call here as well today. Tipperary County Council and Donegal County Council are the only two Irish participants in the Pathways to Resilience programme. That is an EU-funded programme supporting the EU adaptation to climate action and climate change. And what we're doing in Tipperary as part of that is showing how the bioeconomy can be used as a tool to achieve climate adaptation and climate resilience. So that's our theme for the Pathways to Resilience programme. We also have, Patrick alluded to it earlier on, so we were successful in securing just transition funding through the Bioeconomy Call and DAFM for the BioScale-Up project based in Lachine, scale-up facility bringing technology from desktop research right up to commercial scale-up in Lachine, TRL level 4 to TRL level 7, I think, technology readiness level. So we also were successful in Tipperary County Council purchased 10 acres at the back of that facility in Lachine, and we're successful in securing funding to develop a master plan for that 10 acres for bioeconomy development. We also have a Pobble-funded biomethane for carbon and community project with particularly a focus on community and creating a centre of excellence for biomethane. And we recently had, you were just talking earlier about how to filter this knowledge down to the local communities. We recently held a free public event called Low Carbon Community and Climate Action Day in Toos in Thurles, just last week, where we invited in all our stakeholders. We had some keynote speakers. We had over 25 different stands from local communities, organisations, stakeholders involved in, I suppose, the green agenda and with an interest in the green agenda. We explained the supports that are available at Tipperary County Council under climate action, our local enterprise office, the supports that they can offer. The Irish Bioeconomy Foundation, Stephen was there giving an overview of developments on the campus. So it was hugely successful. So I suppose it's initiatives like that, bringing in the public, bringing in the communities, and sharing the knowledge that can work. So
yeah, Elaine, just to come in there, I suppose I attended that event in Thurles. What struck me was it was a very good example of stakeholder engagement. You know, the fact that the you brought in the PPN, the Leo, you had Food Cloud down from Dublin to demonstrate what can be done, you know, to avert food waste. And it's just a really good example there of stakeholder engagements. And I suppose just to further the discussion from earlier on then, and in light of what you've already mentioned, I just wondered, do you have any thoughts then on prospects for greater collaboration, or any barriers that you see to greater collaboration on? So we know that there's 10 local authorities currently working on the deep demonstration initiative. How we can maybe bring along the other local authorities, or any thoughts on that?
Absolutely, and actually there's a very interesting report from the EPA available since March 2020, March this year. So it's current and relevant at the moment, and that's called a review of circular economy and bioeconomy governance in Ireland. And in terms of collaboration and challenges that are there at the moment, the findings would be kind of consistent with what we would find at the local authority level. I suppose it would say what roles and responsibilities and capacity are the main two opportunities, but also challenges at the moment. And this report would say that for both the bioeconomy and the circular economy to be coherent across a range of different relevant coherence would need to improve across a range of different relevant government policies. And we would find at local authority level, the bioeconomy cuts across a number of different departments: economic development, planning, water, community. We need all of these to be engaged and working coherently together. And that's what we're working hard in Tipperary to do at the moment. Equally, the report would say that there's very able and committed people working across government in developing and implementing and supporting circular economy and bioeconomy policy. But with the wide-ranging nature, I suppose, of both the circular and bioeconomy, these people are spread very thin on the ground. So an increase in the number of circular economy and bioeconomy policy analysts in key departments and implementing bodies would appear to be warranted. And this is the same at local authority level. This is what I would be finding at local. We need an increase in personnel on the ground. There's also an urgent need for knowledge about the circular economy and the bioeconomy to be shared more widely across government, and exact same at local authority level. And events like our Low Carbon Community and Climate Action Day, where we also actually had the Rediscovery Centre there with local primary school kids, giving them ideas on how they can implement climate action, small little actions at home, to reuse and recycle and that kind of thing, you know. So yeah, that's just a few ideas there, Colin. Yeah.
Very good, Elaine. Thanks very much. And I suppose the research would show that in terms of bioeconomy, civil society are sometimes the more harder to reach stakeholder groups. So yeah, well done again on those initiatives. David, I might turn to yourself just to get the regional view, I suppose. So the Southern Regional Assembly, you've spoken about the regional economic and spatial strategy already. You might talk to us a little bit about policy objectives as they relate to bioeconomy, and maybe elaborate on some of the Assembly's work to date relating to bioeconomy.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Colin. Look, thanks for the opportunity to speak here today. It's been really interesting, I suppose, just in the context of the policy alignment piece and the need for work in that space, and also the governance piece. That's really all very interesting to us. Look, I suppose from our perspective, our work in this area is effectively set in the context of the National Planning Framework. And great to hear from Laura that the revised National Planning Framework has now been agreed. So we will now commence a process of reviewing our regional spatial and economic strategies over the next 12, 18 months, 24 months. So that'll kickstart a whole body of work for us. But overall, I suppose the objective of the regional spatial and economic strategy is to translate the objectives from the National Planning Framework and economic policies of government to the regional level. So we know there's going to be a massive increase in population over the next number of years, about 1 million extra people in the country. So we have to plan for where they're going to live, work, but also in terms of balance that growth across the country to create that counterbalance to Dublin in terms of population growth, but also the economic activity and so on. But also bearing in mind, I suppose, our climate challenges, so to do it in a sustainable way, low carbon, resilient, climate resilient way. So in a sense, the bioeconomy really provides a really good opportunity in that space. The National Planning Framework calls that out, but we've also called that out very much in the regional space and economic strategy. So identifying the bioeconomy as, I suppose, a space for really good opportunity for in terms of rural diversification, innovation, but that low carbon piece as well. So as we begin to renew and review our research, I think there's a really good opportunity to revisit all of that and maybe look at that in that space as well. So again, that sets the, I suppose, that alignment between the national, regional, and then it filters down to the local, as Laura mentioned earlier on as well, in terms of the 31 local authorities when they develop their county development plans and city development plans and the local economic and community plans. They have to align that with those key objectives and policy pieces within the regional strategy. So again, that creates that policy piece and that alignment. Just in terms then of the revised National Planning Framework, and I suppose the new Planning and Development Act, there is a new role within that for the regional assemblies in the context of the regional space and economic strategies to develop a regional renewable energy strategy that we have to do over the next period as well. So I think that will have an impact in that space as well that we have to be conscious of. So in a sense, I suppose that's probably the policy piece, that policy alignment. But I suppose in terms of our wider role at the regional level, we also have a responsibility and a role in terms of EU funds, the management of EU funds, and attracting EU funds. So we do that in a number of ways. And one is, Colin, the project that you spoke about earlier on. So we I suppose, purposely chase EU funding to help support the implementation of some of our key objectives and initiatives within the regional strategy. The ROBIN project is one example of that, where we kind of look for opportunities to reach out to our neighbours and partners across Europe, learn what they're doing, and try and implement some of the actions and policy learning from that in our policy. Just recently, the Commission have published a modernisation proposal around the cohesion policy. So we're currently examining that just to see are there opportunities in terms of our current regional programme, which is co-funded by the ERDF, to see are there some opportunities or changes that we can make that maybe might give us opportunities in that space around the bioeconomy, decarbonisation zones and so on. So that's at a very, very early stage. But again, it's opportunities that we're constantly looking at. I suppose being at the regional level and probably, if you like, the regional tier of government, and I suppose albeit with a small g, in the government space, we do see I suppose a leadership role for us in that space as well. I suppose in a sense to be a voice for the bioeconomy and I suppose trying to advocate for that in various actions that we do. And there are a number of examples, I suppose, that I could point to where we've kind of tried to utilise that voice that we have, maybe to highlight the opportunities there. One is in the context of the smart specialisation strategy. We have a national smart specialisation strategy, but we were very involved in influencing, I suppose, a regional approach to that. So for the very first time in our national strategy, we have a regional approach to the smart specialisation strategy. So identifying I suppose regional strengths, and Noah mentioned that in her presentation. So we've identified that the bioeconomy is a real opportunity within our region going forward, and it is specifically called out in the smart specialisation strategy, but also the need for, I suppose, enhancing the capacity within our research, development and innovation space to address the challenges, particularly around the new economy opportunities, and this is a real opportunity there as well. I suppose also through our work in the learning region approach that we developed, which is really focusing on, I suppose, lifelong learning and skills development over the lifetime, particularly again looking at what's needed in terms of what's coming down the track for the new economy, new opportunities, and we've identified a number of actions that need to be done there. And again, there are opportunities within the bioeconomy space there as well. Maybe just a final one that I mention is we submitted an application last year to be designated a regional innovation valley, and we were successful in that, along with our other colleagues in the other regional assemblies. And again, okay, whilst there's no funding directly involved with being designated or flagged a regional innovation valley, it does create a network across Europe of other regions, like-minded regions, who are focused on trying to, I suppose, enhance our innovation capacity. And one of the areas that we're obviously looking at is increasing or improving our circularity. I know there are circular economy and bioeconomy are slightly different, but there's still a crossover and linkage there. So I think there's an opportunity there, particularly in the space of attracting funding through Horizon, the I3, and so on and so forth. And not only for us as the Regional Assembly, but all stakeholders within the region to be involved in that space. And just recently, we've been approved for an experimentation journey in a call that was done by the Commission in innovation for place-based transformation. Now, this is kind of focusing on smart, but it does touch on that whole space as well. So they're just, I suppose, some of the areas that we're involved in, Colin, that's trying to, I suppose, enhance or drive that space in the context of our role and our responsibilities.
Thanks very much, David. And you mentioned the Assembly submissions to, say, the cohesion funds. You mentioned smart specialisation, regional innovation valleys, and the influence that can be had there at the EU level. So I suppose a question for David, but also for Elaine and Breda. I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer it, but do you think there are particular strengths and characteristics of regional and local governments that can uniquely impact maybe national and wider EU policy landscape? Would you have any thoughts on that, either of you?
Yeah, look, I think that the role that local and regional can play in this space is really important. As I mentioned, from that leadership piece, but also from the fact that we're closer to the ground, if you like. So in terms of that direct feedback from what's happening on the ground, right up through the ecosystem. I suppose at one level, I look at our European colleagues with a little bit of envy in terms of the strength of the local and regional government across Europe in comparison to Ireland. Ireland is very centralised, and I think what that creates is an opportunity with a strengthened local and regional government is to be more agile in terms of reacting to opportunities on the ground. Obviously within the framework of national strategies and guidance. I think Ireland is very good at that. We do produce those very well, but I think sometimes we tend to be we tend to struggle, if you like, a little bit at the implementation space. And maybe that's because of our overly centralised nature that we're not as agile. Whereas I feel that if our local and regional governance piece was stronger, it can be a little bit more agile in that space. That's just my sense, and I say I kind of look at our colleagues across Europe with a little bit of envy in terms of where they're at.
Thanks, David. Some good reflections there. I'm just conscious of time, but if Breda and or Elaine want to come in quickly on any other points, please do.
Yeah, I just in terms of can we influence national policy, European policy from the local level, I think we influence it largely by how and if policy gets implemented, because there are learnings from that can be conduited back up the chain to inform future policy. And I think it's very important that the European level listen to that. We do have evolving technologies, evolving infrastructure continually, but yet we have a very significant gap in community confidence with these, and we have to listen to the communities and we have to learn from them, and we have to figure out how we can build their confidence to be more supportive of the critical infrastructures that we need. We need to again listen to them, because we have to kind of shift the cultural attitude around key technologies and infrastructures that we have, and we have to give confidence to the communities by addressing what was raised in our workshops during the week, the legacy issues, that don't ignore them, you know, find out what they were, go deep on them. If there are lessons and learnings from that, then address them, confront them and address them in how we do things. That gives confidence to communities, that'll give confidence to policy, that'll give confidence at the other levels. So just a snippet there from my perspective.
Very good, Breda. Thanks very much. Elaine, if you don't want to come in, I might hand back to Debbie. I'm just conscious of our
Sorry,
time.
I was on mute there. I didn't realize I was.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to jump in on that.
Yeah. Maybe just one, and I think Noha referred to it earlier. Policy, collaboration, finance, and community engagement. I think they're the main 4 pillars that have been referred to during the presentations here, but that we are finding at local level as well. But also knowledge sharing. Knowledge generation is a strength, and we can't emphasize it strong enough here at local level. Sharing knowledge amongst the key actors, and it's a strength of both the circular economy and bioeconomy. And I know there's a wide range of research underway at the moment in this area. So we're fortunate that we have the Irish Bioeconomy Foundation based at the campus, but we also have strong links with Bioorbic as the National Bioeconomy Research Centre. So that helps maximise knowledge gathering and sharing. Recently, I attended the launch of the European Bioeconomy Clusters Alliance in Brussels. That's a collaboration of 14 different bioeconomy clusters from 11 EU member states, and they're formed to boost innovation and sustainability in the bioeconomy sector, supporting R&D facility scale up, so industrialization, building strong value chains, and that. So that's knowledge sharing at its best, and I just can't stress the importance of it enough for somebody at local authority level who only came into bioeconomy two years ago. So just a takeaway for anybody listening from local authorities. Thank you.
Brilliant, Elaine. I think we're all learning on our feet as we go. Debbie, I'll hand it back to you then.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Also, thank you all panelists today for being with us today and to really being responsive to our heavy questions. Now we came to the last part, and that's Q&A and the closure session. I would like to just ask a few questions because they have been already addressed in the chat, but also I'm using this opportunity to remind you all that we still have a time. So, encourage yourself and put the question in the chat, and I'm going to address it to the relevant speaker. Maybe Joanna, if you are still here, I think I see you. Yeah. Would you mind? There was one question at the beginning, and I think even Patrick was already kind of touch base that question.
Yeah, it was on regional structures and specifically referencing LawPro's regional structures. And was there anything similar for the bioeconomy? And the questioner, I think, is Alan Walsh, who I was certainly working in LawPro, maybe possibly still is. No, there isn't any similar regional structures for the bioeconomy, but there is around waste planning and the circular economy through the regional waste management planning offices. There's also regional structures for climate, as mentioned, the CAROs. So yes, you would think there is potential for synergies, and certainly in our research, and thanks for the shout out on that, Elaine, we talk about greater linkages between the circular economy and the bioeconomy. They're not the same thing, but in the eyes of many stakeholders, that they see the similarities before they see the differences. I think Patrick just referenced that there's probably more work needed to be done in how best local government can structure itself around environmental policy areas. I think that's true. More generally, I think LawPro, we talk about LawPro extensively in the parallel research study we did for the EPA on water policy, and LawPro a complimentary shout out, Elaine, for Tipperary, because LawPro is led by Tipperary and Kilkenny County Councils jointly on behalf of the local government system. And LawPro does really good work, both in terms of stakeholder and community engagement, and also on the scientific side through their technical officers. And, you know, we've talked about knowledge and knowledge sharing and building knowledge. LawPro do really good work on the ground in local catchments, you know, taking into consideration the local water context, and then feeding that knowledge up through the governance structures. So I would recommend you looking at some of our comment around LawPro and their contribution to water governance. One of the challenges I think that LawPro find is, though, that there's a sense sometimes within local government, oh, water's the responsibility of LawPro. We've handed that over to LawPro. We don't need to engage so much in law with water. That is, you know, the contrary, in fact, is the case. And LawPro have to work very hard at trying to sort of mainstream water concerns, and they do try to engage in training across local government. You know, so sometimes you can think that regional structures will solve the problem, and I think they are very, very constructive, but you have to be also, you know, careful of sort of maybe other implications of setting up regional structures. So I think, yes, very much there is potential for synergy within local government, but further work is needed. And I just think another point we make in our research just is, I suppose, for those of you centrally involved in environmental policy, I think there's a certain onus to sort of support local government and work with them. They're very, very stretched resource-wise, and stretched in terms of the services and the breadth of services they need to deliver. So for those working full-time in environmental policy, you know, take the opportunities to sort of make their life easier, to identify synergies, identify these linkages, or the learning from other policy areas. So I hope that probably answers Alan's question and more.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joanna, for that, really. Brita, maybe this is a question for you. From Keith, he asked, what goes on in the decarbonization zone? Would you be knowing that one? I think that this is what you are mentioning, some.
Yeah, so the decarbonising zone was an initiative of the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage back a few years ago. And it was kind of based, the concept was based around the Portlaoise Low Carbon Town project, which received money under the Urban Regeneration Fund at the time. And obviously the name of the clues in the name there, the Portlaoise Low Carbon Town. So they have this ambition and vision to be a low carbon neutral town by 2050. And they set about their objectives for doing that. So the concept expanded from there. Can we do that? Can we replicate that in other areas across the country? So the DZ, the decarbonising zone, DZ I'll call it from here, that was, it became part of the local authority climate action plans, that every local authority was to nominate an area to focus on, and it was in relation to certain characteristics. So if a local authority could look at an area, explore an area in the context of the opportunities it has to decarbonise, to build climate resilience, and to enhance the biodiversity aspects of it, and use that particular area as a test bed for what is feasible, what is possible, and then from there that can be replicated throughout the administrative area of the local authority. So what we have as a consequence of that concept coming through the statutory process of making the plans, we have 41 DZs across the country, largely one in each local authority area, but there Meath County Council, for example, have 9, and they have a strategy devised to target these areas through the Sustainable Energy Communities model of the SEAI. That's an SEAI programme. So there's work going on in relation to that, and I know local authorities are kind of grappling with it because there's a communications piece around this. We all know that decarbonising or decarbonisation is a hard word, and it's not very community friendly, and it wouldn't entice you into the parish hall meeting on a cold Wednesday night anyway. So we have to kind of look at our communications around this. There's other challenges there in that there's nothing that differentiates the identified DZ areas from anywhere else in the country, because there's no targeted funding stream or there's no innovation funding stream that can be channeled to set them apart and to make them, their test bed characteristics come to life a little bit more. So again, we're working in the background on that. But insofar as from a community or a stakeholder or an individual in these areas, what I would say is, you know, I'm from Portlaoise. I can see the activity that the local authority are doing here. It's about being bought into the vision of the area and to do your piece as much as you can to work to the goals or work to the ambition and objectives that the DZ provide. And it's just we're all going the one direction in relation to this. It's all about climate neutrality, but it's just how do you do it slightly differently and just, you know, play a very concerted effort in that area. So, and I caveated a little bit there because there's a huge amount of work to be done to break down communications around the purpose of the DZs at the moment.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Breda, for answering on this question. Thank you. There is just one thing there, Elaine, for you. I think that you saw this one. If you don't mind, maybe I think you are not muted. That's great. So could you post some more information about the meeting of the bioeconomy cluster?
The bioeconomy, well, it was the launch of this particular cluster that I attended, and I think Patrick Barrett has posted up a link on the thinking behind the clusters. So that's something that's going to continue. These cluster meetings are going to continue. I think there's a meeting in Canada in May for the 14 clusters to come together, and I'm sure an action plan will come out of that. But it's a hugely important initiative to bring together the different European clusters, and it creates a critical mass. It creates a mass of people thinking like-minded, thinking the same way, and wanting to achieve the same goals. You know.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I also saw the comment from Kevin from IBF, where he said that there is going to be a new website for the bioeconomy cluster. So we look forward to that. And now I would like to, Colm, if you don't mind, can you share the screen with us? Just one more short question for all of you. If you don't mind, again, take your phones and do for us answer on one question. Okay, yeah, it's here. Okay, so yes, that's what I want to ask you in presenter mode. Thanks. Super. Perfect. So can you name a key learning from participation in our workshop today? This is very nice word, hope. Nice. Joy. Funding streams. Community projects. Perfect. Thank you so much for your insights. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you who respond to our questions at the beginning and now. I hope you all enjoyed today on our workshop. Once again, thank you to our participants, to our speakers, and also I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you also to our attendees today. So I hope you gained something from today's workshop. And also I would like to mention that both of the projects, ShapingBIO and ROBIN, is actually is going to be ended in the next few months. So feel free to check what we did so far on our projects. And there is going to be more things there, but there is already a lot of information what you can find in there. And yeah, let's keep in touch. And also the presentations are going to be shared with all of you later during today. So thank you once again, everybody, for joining us. Enjoy your day and see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Or you can maybe stay. I don't know where is.
Oh, we can stop recording properly and then email him.